Hey everyone, today I'm here to talk about the new movie Drop. I have been super anticipating this one. Again, I'm not a big, I wouldn't even call this horror though, because I'm not a big horror person. This was more like thriller, I would say. Like, if you don't like horror movies, I think it's absolutely fine. There's not really jump scares or even anything. Like, it's more of a thriller one. So I was super anticipating this one because based on the trailers, I thought it just looked so fun and just so interesting, the concept. It's basically about this woman who goes on a first date with this guy, and then she starts getting texts and drops, like airdrops, but they're not airdrops because obviously that's like copyrighted, but drops being like, hey, we have your son, kill your date or else we're gonna kill him, and just kind of spirals from there. I was worried going into it because, like I said, the trailer was just such perfection. Like, I think the cut, everything about it was just so good that I felt like there was no way it could live up to the hype of the trailer. And I do feel like there's sometimes like that where trailers are just better than movies, like plain and simple. They're just easier, the concepts, to edit into like a really tense 3-minute trailer as opposed to playing out in an hour and 40-minute movie. So I will say I didn't go in with super high expectations, even though I was really enjoying the trailers. I just kind of went in thinking it's going to be a fun movie, and for the most part, I think that's what it was. In my mind, I couldn't help watching it but compare it to Companion, which is another movie that I had watched early this year and absolutely loved, and kind of had a similar vibe of just like this horror, tension, thriller kind of movie, and it was more focused on like a female main character, so I feel like I was just automatically drawing comparisons to that in my mind. And if we're looking at it, I would say this is like maybe a less good version of Companion. Like, I still really like it, but I just think overall story, acting, plot, like all of it is just a little not as finesse as I would like it to be and how it was in Companion. So let's talk about things I did like. I really, really liked the opening credits, how it was just kind of all these different things coming at you. Like, it felt like you were watching like a 3D movie almost, with like broken glass and knives and all this stuff. And my friend who was with me was like, oh, it's all the like potential murder weapons. And I just think it felt like Bond-esque in a way, if that sounds weird, but like that James Bond of like Skyfall, like a really synth pop British song is playing and it's like this beautiful background and all this like slow motion framing of all that. Like, I just really liked that, and I thought it was a fun way to get into the vibe of the movie. I also really like some of the cinematography choices where there were very few key moments where in the restaurant they would black everything out and then it would just zoom in on the main focus of the scene. So it was often Violet, and then sometimes it was the date, but we're not really here for the date. I really liked it because I felt like it put you in her mental state of like feeling like you're blacking out and like everything around you is just kind of zoning out because of what you're focused on. And I think it was a good way to get the audience into her mental state and just kind of make it so this restaurant where all this stuff is going on and seems so busy and all that, it focuses down to what this is really about and this moment and this woman. So I liked that. And I also did love, you know what I'm gonna say, I loved the waiter. Best character in the whole movie, okay? It's his first time, his first shift, you know, he's got so much hope and enthusiasm for a job that is undoubtedly going to crush his soul before he knows it. And I just think he was such a fun character. It was also really fun. I liked the expansion of like it being a restaurant where there's a lot of people there, but there's key characters that we got introduced to, so kind of trying to play along and figure out with Violet who could be sending these. I know a lot of people said in the original like trailer it's gonna be the date, so I do want to talk about the reveal of who it was later on, but I will say my expectations for who it were. It was definitely a person that I'd guessed, but also I feel like everyone was a suspect at a certain point, but I do feel like it was a reveal that they pulled off pretty well. But like I said, I want to get to that in the spoiler part. Things that I didn't like. Now, I will say again, the acting was just not on the level of what I would like it to be. I think Megan Fahey, I think is how you say her name. She's from like White Lotus and stuff. She did a really fun job, and I think she was a great lead. Like, you really felt for her, and I think they did a good job in setting it up so you understood like why she couldn't get out of the situation, because it was kind of repetitive to see her try all these different ways and then fail, but at the same time I think it helped to show you that like there is literally no way out of this for her. She can't call, she can't send out a message, like there are just constant eyes and ears on her. And even when she does try and almost succeed in kind of figuring ways out, like moving her table, getting the $20 bill out, stuff like that, it always just ends up coming back, and then she has to just stay there essentially, and I feel like that was very good. Henry's actor, on the other hand, I was not as impressed with. I know he's from like that movie which I will not name, and also like one of the Yellowstone shows, but I had never seen him in anything before that I know of. There's been a lot of stuff where I don't think I see people in them, but then it's like I have, but I've never seen him in anything big, I will say, if I have seen him where he's like a lead role. And I don't know if it was just an acting choice or something, but he honestly seemed just like he was slurring his words in certain points. Like, it was hard to follow along. It was mainly the beginning when he first got there, so that's why I feel like it was like an acting choice of like him being nervous or something to like show the beginning of the date, but I could not understand what the man was saying for so much of it, and I was like, is this like an accent you're trying to do? And it's just coming on as like you're just slurring your word. Like, it was very confusing. It took me out of it because I feel like you're supposed to like be somewhat attracted to this guy and somewhat care for him that you don't want to see him die. And instead I'm just like, what is he saying? I feel like they did have pretty good chemistry, I will say. Like, I feel like they nailed that like first date kind of awkward energy, and then obviously it ramps up to just disproportionate levels when she has to keep trying to go back on what she's doing and everything. And I feel like he swung with that really well because it never felt totally out of pocket, again, for such a movie that's built around an out of pocket idea, but it never felt out of pocket that like he stayed or anything like that. Like, I feel like she did a good job like showing the like connection they had between them, and I think having them have talked offline for 3 months previous made it make more sense of why they kind of had this connection and why he did stay and keep giving her a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth chance after everything. I do want to get into spoilers because that's where more of the stuff I like and didn't like come into play. So if you haven't seen it, I'm going to talk about who the big bad is for all of this, so just be warned. But yeah, the big bad, like I said, there were so many YouTube comments being like, it's definitely the date, right? And I feel like I had almost convinced myself of that because of that, because you knew there was going to be some sort of plot twist. And like I said, me and my friend, it was really nice the showing we went to because there were only like 4 other people there, and we were all spread out enough that we could like whisper amongst ourselves politely like our guesses with everything, so we were kind of talking it out as it was happening, just like who we thought it was and stuff like that, again politely, but just like whispering like these are our suspects and stuff like that. I don't know, I realized pretty quickly it wasn't a date because it just didn't make sense unless he was like truly a psychopath for him to be like, hey, I've got these pictures of like embezzlement and I want you to smash this SD card and all that. I was like, this guy is going a long way just for like some plan or some like kink he has. I don't know. So I wrote him off pretty easily. The only thing was they definitely were trying to make you seem like it because he would be gone at certain moments, but then there were other times where she's literally getting texts and like you can see him, that he doesn't have a phone, like he's got nothing, so you knew kind of that it was probably more than one person if he was involved, but I wrote that off pretty quickly. The other guy that she bumped into was the explanation for how her phone could get cloned supposedly, but he just ended up being a weirdo. Like, my friend literally turned to me and was like, if that guy is not it, he's just weird because he's been staring at her and bumping into her all night, and it turns out that man was just weird. They didn't really do a great job of explaining, like, it was a very convoluted plan, right, of like cloning her phone, making sure that like this date was here and that it was this night and they were at that table, and that like there were just so many factors of it that I'm like, surely there was an easier way to like set this guy up if that's what you really wanted to do and take him out and set her up. It just seemed like a very much like everything's gonna fall into place. He was one of my guesses, the man, I will say, and especially after he hung around after his date left, I think that made him super suspicious. I did love the confrontation scene though. I thought that really twisted it on his head, and I think for a lot of it, like the theme of her being an abuse survivor really came into it nicely, and I feel like it wasn't used gratuitously, and I was also really pleasantly surprised to see them at the end have a kind of like, if you're in a situation like this, like they had the domestic survivor and domestic help hotline, which I thought was nice because sometimes stuff like that is just used for like just shock value in the movie, but I feel like it actually served its purpose in kind of understanding more of her psyche and understanding why this, I mean, not even just protecting your son on a level of a parent, but why it was so important to her because she felt like she had failed him previously. And that was also kind of the turning point for me when I realized like it would be really shitty if Henry is on this, because they're having this great emotional connection about how like she survived and she still feels guilty, like she stuck around for too long, and she blames herself because in the end she couldn't even like get away from him. Like, he was the one that took his own life, and Henry kind of sees her and is like, you know, like, you're a good mom, you're a good person, like, you can't judge yourself for, like, decisions that you made when you were literally in, like, survivor mode, you know? And was talking about his own kind of struggles with being around someone he thought was a good person and then finding out they're not and trying to do the right thing and all this stuff. So that, I think, was really nice to see them connect on that level too, and really added some depth to their relationship. But I also feel like was cementing for me. I was like, wow, this is gonna be really crappy if he's the bad guy. So that was kind of when I was like, I don't think it's gonna be that dark, of like the guy who's literally like, she's confessing all her fears to and reassuring her is gonna turn around and be like, by the way, it's me. So I really like seeing that confrontation scene again, and how like she kind of had this whole thing of like this guilt for taking in action when her child was young, and now she's not gonna do that anymore, and how she was able to skillfully trick him into thinking she had put the poison in and then putting it in his dessert after. I thought was just a really fun like 1-2 switch. And then I think the last like third of the movie, the action really kicked off in an intense way. Like, I feel like there was a lot of it. It's almost like 2 different movies. It's like thriller, action, the last third, and then the first 2/3 are kind of like this thriller mystery where it's like you're suspicious of everyone, you're looking around with her, you're trying to figure out how do we get out of this situation, who is in on this and everything, is there more than one person, is it the bartender? I thought, honestly, we were convinced it was the, what do you call her? Not a concierge, the hostess, because I could not stop laughing when she was like, oh, I'll take your coat, and then she's like, thank you, and just gives it to her. No coat rack in sight, no like number to be like, get your coat. Like, we were headcanoning that like the the person was so good at their job that like they could remember every single person's coat without needing like a coat check number. So I was suspicious of that, and I was like, well, maybe that's why like they were waiting for her and stuff like that. So there was definitely some stuff that could have been explained a little bit better, but I think they did a good job of like sucking you in with Violet to trying to figure out who this is. And I also really liked how she like from the start was like, hey, I'm getting these weird drops, and like they kind of explain like, oh, this person has to be within 50 feet, and treated it almost like a joke originally, and just like, this happens, it's weird, because then it made it so you're like, I don't know, it just felt more realistic in a way of being like, oh, it's not automatically like I'm taking this seriously. It's like all of a sudden there's like levels to it amping up. So I liked that. And again, I really liked the end with her going into her house and like confronting it, and all the action with that I thought was really, really fun. And then just a little sweet ending too of them just visiting each other and planning a second date, I thought was really, really fun. I have to give them credit because, yeah, I really thought that it was gonna be the date. Like, I thought that was the obvious plot twist. So to not do that and to have it be this, like, creepy guy literally watching her, I thought was really, really good to have someone else in on this. And for such a sophisticated plot too, it made sense. I also thought, can I tell you, when they show the beginning and it's the flashback, but we don't know it's the flashback, we think it's a flash forward, I full on thought that silhouette was the guy that played Henry. So I was like, this is wild that they're announcing that it's Henry right now. But then I'm also like, I give them kind of props for like not just casting like a body double to play this shadow that we have. And then I was like, wait, that's not Henry. Like, they looked so similar. It was creepy, but I really liked it. I don't think it was, again, anywhere near as spectacular I was hoping from the trailer, but I kind of expected that because, again, the trailer just had this idea that felt so tight and compact in a 3-minute time limit that spreading it out for an hour and 40 minutes, obviously there's going to be some lulls. Obviously there's going to be some kind of unanswered questions and everything, but I think for what it was really fun, and I think as it went on, you really started not only to like Violet more, but I felt like the acting started to get better, and I really started to like buy into it more on Megan's part, so I really, really liked that. But yeah, I think it was just a really fun movie. I'm kind of surprised it didn't come out for like Valentine's Day, because I think it would have been a fun like date night movie, but I guess maybe they didn't want to compete with Heart Eyes, and then Companion also came out similar to that time, but I think it maybe would have done a lot better had it come out in that time period, just because it does feel like that, like you're literally on a date, and it's about a movie about a date that goes wrong. Like, you cannot ask for more perfection than that, I feel like. So yeah, if you've seen the movie, let me know what you thought about it down below in the comments. Also, make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!